Hi. Welcome to another episode of Commissioner's Corner. I'm your host, City Commissioner Joe Rozell. My guest for today's show is our mayor, Bob Paul. Mayor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. You just had a birthday yesterday.
I did, yes. It's a busy week for us.
Yes.
It was my birthday yesterday and our 38th wedding anniversary tomorrow.
It is a busy time for you, so thanks for taking time to be part of the show. A couple things we're going to talk about on today's show. It involves our search for a new city manager, and it also involves talking about our road projects and our sewer infrastructure and the things that the City Commission is doing to improve the city's infrastructure. Let's start off talking about the city manager search. So Amy Sullivan, our city manager for the last 6 years about, left us. He had retired, and so we are in the process of searching for a new city manager. Let's talk a little bit about what that process looks like and when we think we might have it concluded.
Before we get into that, I just want to say a couple of words about Amy Sullivan, our city manager. We hired her in 2014, right, shortly before the 300-year flood
right,
that the city experienced. So we sort of brought her into quite the welcoming there.
Yeah.
And followed that up with the tree ordinance, which was quite controversial. So she got off to a quick start there.
Right.
Got her feet wet in a hurry.
She sure did.
And then in the middle, she was with us almost 7 years, and about the middle of that 7 years, we had the whole drag queen story time controversy,
yes,
which
yes,
brought on some protesters and a lot of national media attention. And then we finished up her career with the pandemic,
yes,
which there was no rule book for anyone on how to deal with that. But Amy did a great job throughout her career with us. She handled everything very calmly, and she was great to have with us. And it was unfortunate that she had to retire,
yes,
but necessary. And we hope and wish her all the best in her struggles going forward.
Yeah,
so
agreed. So now we're in the process of replacing her.
We are. We were very fortunate that we were able to hire Mark Wallenweber as an interim city manager, who was our city manager in Huntington Woods, 32 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was followed up by Alex Alley, who served for about 25 years as our city manager. So we were fortunate to hire those two to actually lead the process for finding our next city manager. So we have two people that are not only very well experienced city managers in the state of Michigan,
sure,
but they know the community.
They do.
They know what we're looking for, and they are leading that charge in finding the permanent replacement for the city manager. And they've done that through advertising the post in a wide variety of places.
Right.
And then we think we had a little over 30 applications that were received. And they did some research based on those, narrowed it down to what they felt was the top 10 candidates.
Right.
And they then did a little further investigation on those and brought in, I think it was 5 people for
right,
a very thorough interview.
Yes.
That they conducted. And those, based on that, gave some recommendations to the City Commission, because the final decision is the City Commission is to hire the next city manager.
Very important decision.
They're looking for us to narrow that down to what we feel would be the top maybe 3 candidates, sure, for us to interview, and then go from there, make a final recommendation and an offer, and of course we have to do a thorough background check following that.
Right. And I think it's important you highlighted that we advertise this in a lot of different, aside from the obvious, city manager organizations, both in Michigan. We also went out of state into Indiana and Ohio and some of the neighboring states, and we looked at some more non-traditional areas to post the position too, because we wanted to make sure we got a diverse group of applicants. And I think we accomplished that to a degree.
So.
And we were able to watch the interviews that Alex and Mark conducted, and now the commission will make a decision on the final three, to move forward. And so we'll schedule those interviews, likely make a conditional offer of employment to somebody, probably what you think by the end of October is probably a reasonable timeline?
Yeah, I think we should have a decision by mid-October, and then of course you have to do the background checks,
sure.
Like you said, following that. So maybe end of October, early November, before the new manager's in place.
And it's an important, the commission hires the city manager and then the public safety director. It's one of the few direct hires by the city commission. The rest of the staff is hired by the city manager, and it's an important job. It's really someone who is the face of the commission in terms of the day-to-day operations of the city, and they have a lot of responsibility and a lot of authority. So it's very important that the commission make the right call.
Absolutely. It's not just a matter of the qualifications to do the job, but it has to be the right fit for our community.
It does.
We have a community that's very involved in our local government,
yes.
And we need a city manager that's responsive to the community's needs.
Yes, agreed. So we'll continue on that process, and hopefully by end of October we'll have a candidate selected and background checked and announced, and we'll have that new city manager in place working for us in November. Let's transition away from the city manager search, and let's talk a little bit about infrastructure. So our voters approved a millage, and we were very fortunate that they did that to help fund these road repairs, and as luck would have it, the federal government passed an infrastructure bill, and we'll be receiving some significant dollars from the federal government, and it will be dedicating toward road improvements. So let's talk about this year and sort of what we were able to accomplish in terms of road improvements that are part of this bigger road improvement plan.
Right, and when the residents passed that millage, we sort of changed our approach to road repair, where we always did total reconstruction.
Right.
In the past, now we're doing a combination of reconstruction and maintenance.
Right.
So the program that we put in place this summer included some of both of those, and it will in the future as well. We sort of accelerated the amount of it that we're doing because of the extra dollars that we're getting from the federal government.
Sure.
So that's nice. We can be a little more aggressive in our program.
Yes, we can. And we have a map up for the folks at home to kind of see what roads are being targeted and what those road repairs and replacements look like. We're also doing water main at the same time.
In some of them, yes.
Yeah, because we've got some water mains that are older, that are more prone to breaking. One of them happened to be on Kingston, where I live, and so it's definitely makes sense to replace the water main at the same time, so we're not then coming back out and tearing up a newly paved road 2 to 3 years down the road.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So that was a very conscious and I think economical and smart decision that the city made to do the water mains at the same time as the road repair.
Right, which is what we did on Kingston.
Yes.
And LaSalle, both the Boulevard and LaSalle Lane there.
Right.
I'm sure you're very familiar with the Kingston project.
Yes.
As being a resident there.
Right.
But those were complete road replacement projects, curb and asphalt.
Yes.
So they're just finishing up on LaSalle Lane, making a few last curb cuts and approaches today. They were supposed to be doing that, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And probably the new concrete's already been poured there at the curbs, and they'll continue that tomorrow and Monday. We did put everybody on hold for a few days for Rosh Hashanah for the holiday, so we didn't have them working during that. And then they'll schedule the asphalt following that on the LaSalle project.
And these are big projects, and it is a little inconvenient for residents. I will admit, having experienced it personally. You're having to park sometimes on another block or several blocks away for a significant period of time while that occurs, and there's construction noise and dust. But we just ask residents to be patient, because once the project's done, boy, you've got a great new street and a new water main possibly and new curb. It's all worth it. It's just getting through a month to a month and a half, depending on the complexity of the project, of an inconvenience, but something that's only temporary, and then eventually things get back to normal. And we are very conscious, because I've certainly heard about this, as I'm sure you have as well, from our residents, about the removal of trees during those construction projects. And the city is very aware and only removes trees that are absolutely necessary to remove based on the engineering of the project, or trees that maybe were too close to a driveway approach that won't survive all the work being done that close to the tree. So we have had a limited number of trees that have had to come out, but again, very conscious decisions where either the tree would have been too close to the road where it was being engineered, or would likely have not survived.
Right, and we do have a certified arborist that helps the city in making those decisions.
Yes, and so let's talk about during these, we've talked about it being a little bit of a inconvenience during that month and a half. What's one of the ways that the city is sort of trying to be proactive in making our residents aware of what's coming, and then sort of what's coming during the project itself?
What we've traditionally always done is put a letter. We go door to door and drop a letter at every residence, letting them know what's coming and what they're going to have to deal with. New this year is something we added to the letter, that they can sign up for an e-blast.
Okay.
Which will give them, if there's last minute changes or a delay here for some, whether it's weather or material or whatever it is, it gives us the ability to communicate with them daily with any updates, to keep them as informed as we can. So if you do get the letter asking you to sign up for that e-blast, please take a minute to do that.
You'll be glad you did.
That's right.
And we did, this year we had a lot of rainfall. More, I think, than in previous years, and I know the rainfall did delay some of the projects, so the e-blast would be important to let folks know, hey, there won't be any work for a period of time while we wait for everything to dry out.
Correct.
So, so the e-blast is important, so make sure, as the mayor said, you sign up for that e-blast so we can keep you posted. And the city has a general e-blast, too, that doesn't just cover road construction. It covers all the city happenings, programs, activities, things that are important to know. So on our city website at www.hwmi.org, there's a link there that you can put in your email address and sign up for that sort of e-blast, general e-blast.
Right, the weekly e-blast.
Weekly, every week, So roads and sewer repairs definitely are a real priority of this commission, and something that we undertook several years ago. How do you see this continuing out into the future?
Very aggressively. I mean, we committed as a commission to spending between $450,000 and $500,000 a year on road maintenance and repairs. The federal government extra money for infrastructure that we're getting, we're just adding to those.
Sure.
We're not subtracting our investment down here. We have a very old infrastructure in our community. We have to be as aggressive as we can to keep on top of that. And that's why we're doing a lot of mill and fill projects yet this fall. Borgman from Coolidge to Henley is scheduled. Lincoln over near Coolidge. Aller from Lincoln to Elgin is being done. Balfour. And there are some curb cuts being added along the way where a curb is in really bad shape.
Sure.
They'll replace that and put the cuts in for handicap sidewalk entrances where they're not there now. So these are all all projects that we have planned for yet this year.
Right.
And there's a lot that the city engineers, Nowak and Frost, are working on right now for next year's schedule.
So folks are seeing a lot of construction vehicles and heavy equipment in the city, and it's because there are so many projects going on at one time. On the sewer side, the commission went ahead and sold bonds to work on really improving our sewer infrastructure. And that's that bond payment is on folks' water bill to help pay that down. We started with really televising our sewer system sort of post 2014 flood to say, boy, what does it look like? What damage was done? How bad is it really? And then sort of after we televised it and reviewed it, prioritized into really like 3 categories: lining, bursting, and then just flat out replacement. And kind of, you want to tell folks sort of where we're at in that process?
We started with the lining project first, and we have most of that done at this point. And I think we can credit to some degree the success that we've already had. Some of the communities around us have experienced some pretty rough issues with flooding through this summer, like you said,
Boy,
where
there
was more rainfall. And we've been relatively in good shape compared to that. And I think the lining certainly had a lot to do with that.
Agreed.
So the next part of that plan is the pipe bursting, which is actually a process of bursting, pulling a new pipe through while you're bursting the old one.
The old pipe, right.
It's hopefully we can do that from one place and attack a long line of sewer pipe without digging into people's yards. But a lot of our sewer pipes are in the backyards, in the easement, in the back.
Okay.
So there is going to be sometimes when we need to get into residents' yards and dig and potentially disturb some landscaping and whatnot. But we're going to try and do that as minimally as we can. Where that project is going to go out to bid this fall yet.
Okay.
And we'll probably start in the spring. But we are going to actually televise or videotape the process as we first start.
Okay.
So that we can show that to residents and show them exactly what we're going to do in this process. And we're also hiring an individual to sort of be the ombudsman, if you want to call them, between the community and the city.
Okay.
So they are in constant contact with people, letting them know exactly what we're going to have to do on their property and answer any questions for them. And
that's great. Yeah, I think that's important. Boy, I will say, watching the news the day of and the day after that big rainfall and seeing all of the items on people's yards in Grosse Pointe and Dearborn and Detroit from their basement that just got saturated from sewer backup, it did sort of bring up a very stressful time, right, that we had in 2014.
It sure did. Yeah.
But have learned from and have really taken the time to invest, and our residents supported it, and we weren't in that same boat like some of our neighbors were several times this year. And I remember too, shortly after being elected, we went on a tour of the George W. Kuhn wastewater treatment facility there, that massive facility that goes very deep underground in Madison Heights by 12 Mile and I-75, and just to kind of understand how the process worked with the wastewater when there was a storm and where it went and how it was processed. Yeah,
it was pretty scary to hear how close they were to losing that entire facility during that flood in 2014.
Massive amounts of rain. So once the project is done, we want to assure residents too that this isn't okay, it's all done, we're all set. The commission's committed to a continual program of televising our sewer lines to be proactive about identifying issues with blockages, issues with cracks that are causing the pipe to cave in, so that sewer is easy to forget because it's underground, right? The roads you can see. You drive on, there's potholes, there's cracks in the road. You can see that. The sewer lines, they're underground. They're not something we think about or want to think about, frankly, very often. But the commission has really taken the approach that this is something that we're going to continue to stay on top of into the future.
Yes, yep. Just like the road maintenance program, maintenance is a much cheaper way to approach these projects rather than letting it go to the point of replacement.
Right.
It's the same promise we made to the tree trimming that got away from us for many years, where we didn't do a steady tree trimming throughout the community, and we're back on doing every 3 years we do a part of the city, and stay on top of that. It becomes much more manageable, and
it does. And that's the trimming of the trees in the city right of way that are maintained by the city. And we just received notice from DTE that they're going to start an aggressive tree trimming campaign for the trees that are in the right of way, in most cases the rear of people's yards, that are potentially interfering with power lines and causing power issues. So,
and they did commit to Huntington Woods to do that. They did a pretty thorough tree trimming for us. Was it 2 years, 3 years ago now? I think it was only 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's 2017 or 2018. Yeah,
so
2 to 3 years ago. Time flies.
3 years ago.
It sure does.
So they did commit to us at that point that they would keep us in the rotation every 5 to 7 years and not let it get out of control like they had in the past.
Yeah.
So that is something that we're certainly going to hold them to.
Absolutely. And we have seen the number of power outages go down post their tree trimming efforts. We did have some big storms come through recently, and there were parts of the city that did lose power, but I think really we could have been a lot worse off had they not been as aggressive as they've been with the trimming of the trees in the easement as well. So the city, I think, has and with the support of our residents, really taken on infrastructure as a big priority. That our aging infrastructure is something that really needs to be addressed. And the city went through and did ratings of all the streets to determine which ones were the worst off and which ones were sort of categorized. I think it's a Pazer rating for those streets. And so residents might want to know, well, where's my street at in the project? And so they can contact our city manager and get information about where their street's at. There's also information on the city's website that they can access to see. It's going to be a process. We're not going to be able to do the whole city in a year or two, but a little bit at a time and staying on top of it, we'll be able to definitely improve our infrastructure.
We hope to see some major improvements in maybe the next 3-year period of time with this maintenance, aggressive maintenance program. So.
That's great. Well, Mayor, thank you for taking the time to join me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great information that we're able to share with our residents, and I appreciate your leadership in the city. When I was first elected in 2015 and then reelected in 17, you've been a good mentor and been a good leader for the city, and I, on behalf of me and the colleagues on the commission, say thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's a great commission. We have a lot of talent on that commission, people with different backgrounds and different knowledge sets, and it helps to make everything work great.
Sure does. And if you've missed any part of today's program, it'll be available on the city's website by clicking on the YouTube channel link, and you can watch it again in its entirety online, or it'll be rebroadcast on local cable TV at several times throughout the day. If you have any questions about anything we've discussed on today's show, or any questions about our city in general, you can always reach me by email. That's Rozell, JROZELL @hwmi.org. Until next time, thank you for watching.